Intel has recently released the rest of their 12th gen Alder Lake CPUs, which included lower end parts like the i5 12400 and i3 12100. While watching reviews, I was pleased to see that budget gamers had some excellent options available for their latest generation. However, what stuck out like a sore thumb to me was AMD's absence here. Let's discuss that in this video. Hey, if you enjoy content like this, drop a like, make sure to subscribe, and smash that bell so you never miss another video. Hey, what is going on guys? Danny here. Welcome back to the channel and I hope you've all been doing well. At CES this year, Intel has announced the rest of their desktop lineup from the Alder Lake family of CPUs, alongside some new mobile processors. But for this video, I wanted to focus on the former. The SKUs in this announcement included the parts which are similar to their K-SKU parts that Intel initially released to the market for Alder Lake last year. Essentially, they're just locked parts which can't be overclocked, they have slightly lower clock speeds compared to those parts, and some of those are F variants, meaning that they don't have an integrated GPU. These parts are still very viable CPUs, you'll see them most often in OEM systems, and if you're not really into overclocking, then you can save some money and pick up one of these CPUs instead. Two CPUs that I wanted to focus on were the i5 12400 and i3 12100. The i5 12400 is a 6-core 12-threaded CPU that's based on the Alder Lake architecture. However, unlike its bigger brother, the i5 12600K, this i5 has no efficiency cores, so unfortunately you do lose out on that extra bit of multi-core performance that's yielded from having those extra E-cores. However, those E-cores don't really make a huge difference when it comes to gaming, and you're still getting fast single-core performance, and with 12 threads, that should still allow the user to dive into various multitasking programs which involve multiple threads. Currently, the i5 12400 retails for about $200 to $220 US, depending on the sale or the region, which I think is pretty good value, and it does come with Intel's new box cooler, so you save a bit of money due to not having to buy an aftermarket cooler. Reviews of this chip across multiple outlets were generally positive. Depending on the title, this chip was able to deliver performance that was not too far behind its K-SKU'd counterpart, and even bested AMD's Ryzen 5000 series in some titles such as the 5600X, which was the go-to CPU for gamers before Alder Lake. Let me remind you guys again that this is a CPU that only costs a little over $200 US, and is competing with AMD's top-tier CPUs like the 5950X, which cost significantly more. Though keep in mind, the 5950X or even the 12900K exist because people buying those chips would be using it for other tasks that require those extra cores, but nonetheless, it's still impressive to see this chip delivering such good performance per dollar relative to other options on the market. Also, even though this chip isn't overclockable, you can still tune it by removing the power limits, and that will give the CPU more headroom to work with in terms of power and thermals. Granted, you've got a decent cooler, and this can result in more performance. The i3 12100 is part of Intel's entry-level CPU lineup from the Alder Lake family. This CPU has 4 cores and 8 threads with no E-cores like the 12400, but at its low price point of just $110 US, I'm sure that isn't a huge deal to most people in this segment. Gamers Nexus recently did a review of the i3 12100F. It's basically the same chip, just without the iGPU. Definitely check it out. After seeing the review, I can see why people are calling this chip the budget king. It's able to deliver gaming performance that's a bit better than the Ryzen 5 3600, which could be argued had held the title previously for budget king. I mean, seriously, this chip is a little over $100 and is giving you the same performance as AMD's best-selling 6-core from 2019. I mean, you ask anyone back then what was the go-to chip for gamers, and the vast majority would tell you to go with the 3600 and call it a day. Why? Well, because it was released at an MSRP of $200, and often you could find it on sale for even less than that, sometimes as low as $150. And it would still hold up as a viable option today, but it seems like perhaps due to being phased out or lower supply, you can't really find it in stock anymore at retailers, and websites like Newegg or Amazon just show third-party listings which are severely overpriced. So if you're going to be building a budget gaming rig, and I know it sounds weird saying that right now, considering awful GPU prices, the i3 12100 or 12100F are excellent options, and if you wanted something with a bit more cores and performance, and you stretch your budget about $100 more, then the 12400 is the next best option. The reason why I highlighted those chips is because when looking at an alternate option from AMD, well, unfortunately, there isn't one, and it's bizarre seeing the CPU market like this. Historically, AMD has always had some great value parts you can get, going back to their FX days with chips like the FX 6300, Athlon X4 860K. Even when Ryzen came along with each generation, they had excellent budget parts for entry-level gamers, like the 1600 or Ryzen 3 3300X. However, since they released the Ryzen 5000 series in late 2020, it seems like AMD has abandoned one of their biggest segments, which is the entry-level gamer. Why they seem to be ignoring this market is beyond me. I thought for sure by the time summer of 2021 rolled around, we would have seen a budget Ryzen 3 Zen 3 CPU. While we did get a couple of APUs from AMD, they didn't fulfill that void that has been left in that $100 to $200 segment. Then ever since Intel launched Alder Lake, the ignorance and void has become even more apparent. New builders who aren't looking to spend a whole lot of money on a CPU will look at the current market and go, okay, what are my options here? Then realize that, well, the i3 12100 or 12100F are really the only options available because AMD doesn't have anything in those price brackets from its current or latest generation that can compete. In my previous video where I talked about Intel's K-skewed Alder Lake parts, I said that the 5600X now needs a price cut. This chip should be brought down to $200 or $220 at most, which would make it compete with the 12400. However, they still don't have anything for the i3s, and that's where a 5300X could come in. Now for Intel, it's not a slam dunk win for them either, maybe not yet, because people buying these CPUs aren't going to be pairing them with expensive Z690 motherboards. One, because they cost a lot of money, and two, since these are locked parts, they don't necessarily need all those extra overclocking features, overkill VRMs, and a plethora of I/O. No, they're just interested in buying a motherboard that will allow them to get the most performance from the CPU out of the box, and has, well, the essential features. Those motherboards would be Intel's H670, B660, and H610 motherboards. The problem is that there aren't a whole lot of options available for those chipsets right now, and for the ones that are in stock, they're overpriced. Whereas for AMD, there are plenty of cost-effective B550 motherboards and B450 motherboards. Keep in mind, B550 motherboards do also have more overclocking features available too. But then what makes the situation even more comical is that AMD won't take advantage of this, where they have a good selection of motherboards, they have a great platform, but won't offer any good budget or entry-level CPUs alongside them. They also still haven't expanded support for older X370 and B350 motherboards either. It's going to be pretty interesting to see how this will play out. Will AMD retaliate by issuing some kind of price cut or, releasing an entry-level part? Otherwise, Intel will have their cake and eat it too. It's a bit sad to see that a market segment that was once AMD's bread and butter has been left almost completely abandoned by them. If you guys found this video to be informative and entertaining, then leave a like. Let me know your thoughts and comments down below. Be sure to check out the video description for cool links and ways to support the channel, such as using my Amazon affiliate link. And if you're interested in seeing more content like this, then consider subscribing. I'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for watching, take care, and I'll see you in the next one.